Those of us old enough to remember the millennium with some clarity will recall that Coyote Ugly was hammered by the majority of critics upon release, dubbed sexist, shallow and silly, by Rotten Tomatoes reviewer Nell Minow when it came out back in 2000. The 1990s brought the world some truly incredible TV. Minow was writing her review for Common Sense Media. However, and to enjoy a film like Coyote Ugly you can't put too much stake in common sense. From the teenage angst of my so-called life to the endless humor of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air to the launch of a television dynasty with Law and Order, the decade that introduced us to Nirvana and the SNES was also responsible for completely changing the way we watch TV. David McNally's raunchy rom-com is best viewed with the brain switched to primal mode, and for those who are willing to forego a watertight plot in favor of water-soaked dance numbers, Coyote Ugly is not only bearable, but genuinely enjoyable. Cable broadened the scope of what was available. Over the years this divisive film has built up a strong cult following, refusing to age and somehow managing to remain relevant. Storylines stretched over the course of entire seasons. Shows, about nothing, captivated viewers for years. But where Seinfeld proved that a series doesn't need to have 1,000 twists and turns in order to find success, plenty of other shows went the opposite route, digging into the depths of obscurity for their premises. TV in the 90s wasn't afraid to be weird, but some shows took that to truly oddball places. Can the same be said for the cast? Here's what they look like today. Adam Garcia. Australian actor Adam Garcia's love for performing began when his father took him to see the Rocky Horror Picture Show age just 8, and after a fleeting attempt at launching a career as a pop star on the back of his part in the original stage production of Saturday Night Fever, he set his sights on movies. Some of these shows were successful, while some of them fell flat. Regardless, they're all worth watching, if for no other reason than to see how hard they tried to be different, new, and interesting. Like Piper Perabo, Adam Garcia only had one previous film appearance under his belt when he was offered a part in Coyote Ugly, and, again, much like his co-star, he is still best known for it even now. "I had no idea in the moment what it would become," he said of the film. These are the 90s shows with the strangest, weirdest, and most bizarre premises. Twin Peaks made its debut on April 8, 1990, forever changing the way television shows were made, received, and discussed. None at all. Created by Mark Frost and David Lynch, the series focuses on the murder of popular high school student Laura Palmer, Cheryl Lee, in the fictional town of Twin Peaks, Washington. Even at the box office I don't even think we were number one. The ensuing investigation, led by FBI Special Agent Dale Cooper, Kyle MacLachlan, brings forth a seemingly endless number of suspects from the town's pool of eccentrics, and is marked by supernatural occurrences, doppelgangers housed in extra-dimensional realms, and otherworldly killers with the ability to inhabit the bodies of innocent townsfolk. The show blends elements from nearly every genre, balancing its serious subject matter with an irreverent and melodramatic tone. Critically it was meh, but people just seemed to really like it, which is great. Lynch's cinematic vision came from so far out of left field for what television had been up to that point that the complete absurdity of it made viewers' heads spin. The twists and turns of the show's narrative are dizzying: teenage prostitution, riddle-spouting giants, drug trafficking, and the afterlife itself are all part of the Twin Peaks story. No wonder we're still discussing it, more than 30 years after its debut. The X-Files. From the moment The X-Files premiered in 1993, it was obvious viewers were going to be in for one hell of a ride. It does have a really endearing story about someone struggling to get somewhere who has a dream. Its pilot episode focuses on a series of teenage deaths that FBI Special Agents Fox Mulder, David Duchovny, and Dana Scully, Gillian Anderson, are tasked with solving. I guess in that regard it's a great film. Garcia has split his time between stage, film and television in the years since. Mulder is convinced they're the result of alien abductions, while Scully believes there's a rational explanation to be found. In 2013 he was nominated for an Olivier Award for his supporting role in the London revival of Kiss Me, Kate, and he's popped up in numerous much-loved TV shows such as Doctor Who 2005, Flight of the Conchords 2009, and House 2010. The truth is that there's more to it than either agent realizes, which sends the pair on an 11-season-long quest to uncover the government's darkest secrets. Along with its heavy dose of UFO lore, The X-Files explores everything from occult mystery to cyberpunk sci-fi. Highlights of the series include Season 2's Humbug, which tells the story of a murderous parasitic twin let loose among a community of circus performers. Season 3's Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose, about a life insurance salesman who can see how people will die and who gives Scully a couple of very important predictions. And Season 4's Home, arguably the show's most controversial episode, which follows the Peacocks, a very Texas Chainsaw-esque family living and breeding in a small Pennsylvania town. His career as a movie star never really took off, however, with his most noteworthy appearance post-Coyote being 2001's Riding in Cars with Boys. Maria Bello, after making a name for herself as Dr. It's Wild, It's Weird, and It's Why We Still Love the X-Files Today. Baywatch Nights. In the spring of 1989, television audiences were blessed with the glorious seaside campfest that is Baywatch. Starring David Hasselhoff as Mitch Buchanan, the series follows a team of LA County lifeguards as they dive headfirst into hard-hitting stories like stopping an amateur fire breather from burning down lifeguard towers and inadvertently falling in love with murderers. The show wound up being so successful that it got a spin-off in 1995, Baywatch Nights, which takes the ridiculous premise of crime-fighting lifeguards to a whole new level. Baywatch Nights follows Garner Illerby, Gregory Allen Williams, a police sergeant turned private detective who starts a business with Mitch and Detective Ryan McBride, Angie Harmon. Anna Del Amico on NBC medical drama 1997–1998. Maria Bello transitioned into the film world with a supporting role in Ben Stiller indie drama Permanent Midnight, 1998, followed by a starring role opposite Mel Gibson in Payback, 1999. In her third outing Coyote Ugly she played the founder of the titular bar Lil Lovell, who managed to turn her honky-tonk saloon in New York City's East Village into an international chain on the back of the film, which is set in that original dive bar. To get into the mindset, Bello and her castmates hit up some similar spots. We went to one of the bars in New York a couple of months ago where it's sort of like the real-life bar Coyote Ugly, where they do this sort of thing, Bello told E.T. And the girls did this dance called the water dance, and it was hilarious because here they were pouring water on top of each other and really kind of sexy and wild to this great music. The first season is pretty standard stuff, but when ratings dipped, the show took a sharp left into X-Files territory, replacing Garner with paranormal expert Diamant Teague Dorian Gregory in Season 2. From there, fast food drug deals and mob kidnappings are replaced with Haitian voodoo cults, vampires, and gelatinous sea monsters. The Supernatural update did little to solve the show's viewership issues though, and it was cancelled after its sophomore season. So they brought a dance similar to that into the movie. Bello has starred in a number of critically acclaimed movies in the years that followed, but her decision-making has always plagued her. Turns out, ripping off a show like The X-Files only works if it's not in direct competition. Nowhere Man photojournalist Thomas Vale's life is turned upside down when, in the middle of a romantic dinner with his wife, he returns from the bathroom to find that his entire existence has been erased. She took over from Rachel Weisz in ill-advised Mummy sequel Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, put herself in questionable company for low-brow comedy Grown Ups and recently took part in Max Steel, a rare 0%er on Rotten Tomatoes. Izabela Miko Polish beauty Izabela Miko turned to acting when injury ended her dreams of becoming a professional dancer. After winning a scholarship at the prestigious School of American Ballet, Miko was on course to make it big, but when she damaged vertebrae in her back she was forced to return to Poland. Once home, a local filmmaker offered her the chance to change direction with a part in a silent TV movie called Lithuania You Are My Motherland. Acting filled the void that had been in her life, and before long she had decided that if she was going to make it she needed to be in LA. His wife is gone, his best friend is dead, and there's someone else living in his house. Still in her teens, Miko packed her bags and boarded a plane for the States, where she came to the attention of a huge agent. While she didn't have the money to make things official, this agent put her in touch with the casting director working on the upcoming Coyote Ugly. She was offered the part of Cammy and made her big screen debut aged 19. Her most high-profile appearance in the years since came in 2010 when she played Athena in the Clash of the Titans reboot, but she's spent most of time post-Coyote combining her dance talents with her acting. Starring Bruce Greenwood as Thomas, Nowhere Man follows Thomas's quest to uncover the truth of his stolen identity, which traces back to a secret government organization and a photograph Thomas took of 4 U.S. soldiers being hanged in South America. She's busted moves in Save the Last Dance 2 2006, Make Your Move 2013, and Step Up All In 2014, and in 2014 she made her debut as a producer, spearheading British biographical drama Desert Dancer. Tyra Banks. Unlike the other Coyote Ugly girls, Tyra Banks was already a superstar when she was cast in the part of crowdsurfing barmaid Zoe. The stunning Cali girl was a Victoria's Secret angel at the time and only continued to get bigger in the years after the film dropped. Named the world's most famous supermodel in a 2006 write-up by Forbes. Her fame was given a huge boost by America's Next Top Model, the reality show she herself conceived and hosted for a whopping 22 seasons until it was cancelled in 2015. As far as her acting career is concerned, she followed up Coyote Ugly with a role in tired 2002 slasher flick Halloween: Resurrection, though the majority of her appearances in both film and TV have been cameos as herself. It ran for one season before it was cancelled. The series plays out much like 1963's The Fugitive, in that Thomas travels from city to city in his search for clues about the organization, picking up odd jobs to fly under the radar while he gets closer to the truth. Along the way, he comes into contact with a string of strange characters, including a 10-year-old blind psychic, a UFO enthusiast, and several actors hired by the organization to bring Thomas in. Ultimately, the truth behind the organization and Thomas's lost identity leaves him with more questions than answers, but with the show's early cancellation, audiences were never given the opportunity to delve any deeper. Mantis pilot episode is vastly different from the series that follows. It begins as the story of one of the first black superheroes on TV. Dr. Banks has managed to keep her fame flame alive in other ways, however, flirting with a career in music on occasion and turning her hand to writing. 2. She became a New York Times best-selling author in 2011 when her semi-autobiographical novel Modelland became a big hit. Banks announced plans to adapt Modelland for the big screen, even telling the Associated Press via The Hollywood Reporter that she had been approached by producers. Miles Hawkins, Carl Lumbly, a biophysicist who becomes paralyzed after being shot by a police sniper during a riot. Whether the project has been canned or remains on the back burner is unclear, but what we do know is that Banks is coming back to America's Next Top Model for the upcoming 24th cycle of the show, replacing the outgoing Rita Ora. Bridget Moynihan. Like Tyra Banks, Bridget Moynihan had a background in modeling when she was cast in Coyote Ugly, though she wouldn't go on to enjoy anywhere near the same levels of success afterwards. The actress was under the glare of the public eye in the mid-'00s when she dated NFL quarterback Tom Brady during a golden period for the New England Patriots, but when the couple amicably ended their 3-year relationship, the actress began to fade from the spotlight. While Coyote Ugly was her first feature film, Moynihan actually made her screen debut a few years earlier when she appeared as the other woman, Natasha on Sex and the City, a character who was only supposed to appear in a single episode as Mr. Big's wife until producers decided they wanted to see more of her. He develops an exoskeleton that offers him mobility and more, the mechanically augmented neurotransmitter interactive system, and, rather reluctantly, sets out on a mission to fight crime and corruption. Before the series went to air, however, serious changes were made, including the replacement of its diverse cast with one that features only 2 people of color outside of the show's main character. Plot points that focused heavily on racial issues were changed in favor of fantasy elements like parallel universes and time travel. The series finale involves an invisible dinosaur frozen in a glacier. "I always found it ironic people didn't really like me since I was the one getting cheated on," she told EU. This retooled concept was met with criticism, although network execs were quick to cite creative reasons for the changes, with Bob Greenblatt, senior vice president of drama series development at Fox, telling the Los Angeles Times that he thought the pilot was too grim and too realistic. But that's the tribute to how much people loved Carrie and Sarah Jessica Parker.
Today, Moynihan is best known for her work in TV, having starred as Assistant District Attorney Erin Reagan in CBS procedural Blue Bloods, which recently celebrated its 150th episode since its inception in 2010. "We didn't want to do episodes about the human condition every week. So instead, audiences got genetically altered jellyfish people. This is one series that's bizarre for the worst possible reasons. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. The 1978 cult classic Attack of the Killer Tomatoes has, undoubtedly, one of the most bizarre premises in cinematic history. "I have noticed that the writing has gotten better year after year," she said. Giant, man-eating tomatoes descend upon the country, throwing it into chaos. "Luckily we have a bunch of writers and people who really care about the show and who keep coming up with really smart ideas and storylines." Melanie Lynskey. New Zealand-born character actress Melanie Lynskey got her big break in 1994 when compatriot Peter Jackson cast her in his critically acclaimed psychological drama Heavenly Creatures, but while her co-star Kate Winslet was able to ride the success of that movie all the way to Tinseltown, Lynskey had to climb the ladder the hard way. The only hope for humanity lies with a group of ragtag heroes, including a man literally named Mason Dixon and a disguise expert who blows his cover by asking a killer tomato to pass the ketchup. Victory comes from a ballad called Puberty Love. It'd be difficult to build upon that premise any further, but between 1990 and 1991, Fox Kids did exactly that with Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, the animated series no one saw coming. 5 years after the Great Tomato War, Dr. Putrid Tea. Not many critics had kind things to say about her work during the late 90s and early 2000s, her role as homely best friend Gloria in Coyote Ugly included, though a quick glance at her Rotten Tomatoes record shows how she managed to turn that early form around. Lynskey has an impressive amount of certified fresh films on her resume and has been on something of a hot streak recently, with 2016's The Intervention and 2017's I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore both reaching that sought-after critical milestone. She also managed to carve out a successful career in TV, portraying Rose in CBS sitcom 2.5 Men from 2003 until 2015 and grabbing headlines with a full frontal nude scene in HBO comedy drama Togetherness. "When people have sex, they're naked," she told Guardian. Gangrene has continued his tomato experiments, which now include tomato variants like Tara, a tomato turned human, and her dog, FT, a fuzzy tomato that barks. It's not supposed to be turning everyone on. Tara befriends Chad, our 10-year-old hero, and gets a job working at Chad's Uncle Wilbur's tomatoless pizza parlor. Together, the trio attempt to stop Gangrene from taking over the world, then work alongside him to defeat a group of twice-mutated tomatoes in revolt. One can't help but wonder, are there adults wandering around today whose dislike of gazpacho, bruschetta, and marinara sauce springs from this one bizarre cartoon? Millennium. The 90s were chock full of TV shows that married police drama to supernatural elements, and Millennium, which ran on Fox for 3 seasons between 1996 and 1999, was arguably one of the best, and strangest. That probably has something to do with the fact that Millennium happens to be the second series created by Chris Carter, The X-Files being his first. The show follows Frank Black, Lance Henriksen, a former FBI profiler who works as a consultant with the Millennium Group, a shadowy organization hoping to bring about the end of the world. Frank doesn't know this at the onset of the series, of course, and instead uses his psychic abilities, which allow him to see what a killer sees, to aid in apocalypse-themed investigations. Millennium was frequently compared to the film Say 7N, though it takes a more lighthearted approach to its narrative. Season 2's Jose Chung's Doomsday Defense, written by Darren Morgan, who wrote the X-Files episodes Humbug and Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose, parodies Scientology, while Somehow, Satan Got Behind Me, also by Morgan, follows a group of demons sharing stories at a coffee shop. We're not showing perfectly manicured porn bodies, people are used to seeing that kind of image of sexuality, especially of the female body. The show has a wackiness to it that keeps it from getting too bogged down in its serious elements, and somehow, that willingness to joke makes the show all the more bizarre. American Gothic executive produced by Sam Raimi, American Gothic is a horror drama that ran on CBS for 1 season between 1995 and 1996. It feels really exciting to me to be naked and be like, hey, that's what some people look like. It feels radical. John Goodman. It was the Coen brothers who first saw Roseanne star John Goodman as more than a funny man, and through the sibling directors he was able to showcase his versatile talents. It tells the story of Caleb Temple, Lucas Black, a young boy in the fictional town of Trinity, South Carolina, who comes to find out that he's the son of the literal devil, who rules over the town by posing as its friendly sheriff, Lucas Buck, Gary Cole. He managed to straddle the fence between family-friendly flicks and edgier projects throughout the 90s. He did The Borrowers and The Big Lebowski within a year of each other, for example, and on the turn of the new millennium he played Piper Perabo's reluctant dad in Coyote Ugly. Goodman put in a patented scene-stealing performance as Bill Sanford, though what his fans and colleagues didn't know at the time was that he was suffering from alcoholism. After Lucas kills Caleb's entire family, he sets about grooming him to take over the throne, but is stopped with the help of Trinity's newest transplant, Dr. Matt Crower, Jake Weber, Caleb's cousin Gail, Paige Turco, and the ghost of his sister, Merlin, Sarah Paulson. That plot is strange enough as is, but CBS pulled a Firefly with the series and aired the season out of order, cutting 4 episodes completely from its original run. "There's many times I could have gone under," the actor told Guardian. As a result, some key moments wound up being omitted from the story, including one in which Gail uncovers the truth behind her parents' mysterious deaths, and another in which Lucas enlists the help of the Boston Strangler's ghost to deal with Merlin. Skeleton warriors on the planet Luminaire, the forces of good and evil fight for control of the powerful Lightstar crystal. I drank for a while, and towards the end of that, the lines would not come. On one side is Baron Dark, whose success in capturing one half of the crystal has turned him into a living skeleton with the ability to change others into skeletons for his army. On the other side is Pryce Lightstar and his family, who've managed to hold onto the other half of the Lightstar crystal, which has imbued each of them with fantastic and decidedly less skeleton-y powers. Skeleton Warriors ran for only 13 episodes on CBS between 1994 and 1995. Things change on a dime in Luminaire. Baron Dark would have the upper hand, then the next week, it would belong to Prince Lightstar. And it was like a snowball. The show ends with Baron Dark's defeat and the destruction of the Lightstar crystal entirely. It just built up a lack of confidence that I could even learn lines. Goodman kicked the booze back in 2007 and has been sober ever since. He recently used that same determination to do something about his weight after recognizing he was in dangerous territory. While the story never evolves beyond the power struggle at its core, this is no Batman, the animated series. It did spawn its very own Toylan, a Marvel comic series, and a video game, proving that it didn't take much to keep 90s kids entertained, given a cool enough aesthetic. Skeleton Warriors exists today as an artifact from a bizarre time in animation, part misty fantasy, part steely sci-fi, part death metal t-shirt. VR.5 The 90s had a real fascination with the idea of virtual reality. I just got tired, sick and tired of looking at myself, Goodman revealed on Popcorn with Peter Travers. You're shaving in the mirror and you don't want to look at yourself. Now slim and in his mid-60s, Goodman shows no signs of slowing down, with 5 projects currently in some stage of production, including an 8-episode revival of Roseanne. LeAnn Rimes, country singer turned pop star LeAnn Rimes, made a brief but memorable cameo appearance in Coyote Ugly when she performed at said bar in the final scene of the film, though her biggest contribution undoubtedly came in the form of music. Films like 1992's The Lawnmower Man, 1995's Johnny Mnemonic, and 1999's The 13th Floor all explore the virtual realm, complete with cutting-edge computer graphics straight out of Tomb Raider. Now, these kinds of sequences look pretty laughable, but in 1995, they were extremely cool. Rimes had 4 songs on the film's popular soundtrack, most notably the single Can't Fight the Moonlight, which became the unofficial Coyote Ugly anthem and propelled the singer to new levels of fame. She didn't like the direction in which her career was heading, however, and in 2002 Rimes dropped her dad as her manager and left her country roots in the dust with 5th studio album Twisted Angel. Her new sound didn't go down as well as Rimes had hoped, with lead single Life Goes On proving to be a chart disappointment for her. VR.5 is the embodiment of that trend, from its dramatic shots of people typing to its cyberpunk visors. Laurie Singer stars as Sydney Bloom, a line worker for a telephone company who dabbles in virtual reality in her off time. When Sydney was a child, her scientist father and twin sister died in a tragic car accident, and she continues to struggle with their passing. The song failed to register on the Billboard Hot 100 and only managed to reach number 35 on the mainstream Top 40 airplay chart, leaving her with a difficult decision to make going forward. When she accidentally discovers she has the ability to tap into others' subconscious via her own VR world, Sydney becomes the target of the committee, a secret organization that may have actually been behind her family's death. VR.5 didn't last long, only 13 episodes total, with 3 of them not airing at all during the show's run on Fox. But in those 13 episodes, audiences were treated to implanted memories, mirror worlds, and a whole lot of bad CG. Sliders. When it premiered in 1995, Sliders was a fun, original sci-fi trip through parallel worlds, in a similar vein to 1989's Quantum Leap. Grad student Quinn Mallory, Jerry O'Connell, is researching anti-gravity when he inadvertently opens a portal to another Earth, which pulls him and three friends, Wade Wells, Sabrina Lloyd, Professor Maximilian Arturo, John Rhys Davies, and Rembrandt, Crying Man, Brown, Cleavant Derricks, into a series of alternate universes. In the end, Rhymes, who has become a tabloid fixture in recent years, came cowboy hat in hand back to country music in 2005 and has proudly allowed the genre to influence her style of music since. Each episode takes place on a different world, where, frequently, the group comes face-to-face with parallel universe versions of themselves. For the first 2 seasons, the show focuses on navigating the social and political landscapes of each new world the group visits. Earths where Great Britain won the Revolutionary War, or men are treated as the weaker sex while women hold the most powerful positions in the country make for some truly interesting TV. Then, at the start of Slider's 3rd season, focus shifts to more action-heavy storylines, and Kari Wuhrer is brought in as Maggie Beckett, a military captain who wears as little as possible. Things only get worse from there. I fully embrace the journey I am on and have a deeper understanding of how every piece of my story serves a purpose in my evolution as a woman and an artist, Rhymes told Billboard while promoting her most recent album Remnants. Piper Perabo's career in acting began when she was talked into auditioning for a role that her friend was going for, having tagged along to the casting call out of curiosity. Eventually, the entire cast, with the exception of Derricks' Rembrandt, are replaced by new characters or, in the case of O'Connell's Quinn, an alternate version played by a completely different actor. While she didn't win the part, she impressed enough for her name to be passed to a talent manager. It's disappointing, but hey, at least it's as weird as the rest of the show. Wild West COW Boys of Moo Mesa. Wild West COW Boys of Moo Mesa ran on ABC for 2 seasons between 1992 and 1993. With new representation and a rekindled enthusiasm for acting, she put on plays for her friends and family as a child. Perabo was cast as female lead Violet Jersey Sanford in Coyote Ugly, a character she related to instantly. When I first read the script, it hit me like a ton of bricks, she told BBC. A year earlier, I had moved from New Jersey. The same train she takes back and forth from her house is the train I take back and forth from my house. As you might have guessed from the title, the series' premise is completely bonkers. When a mysterious comet hits the southwest sometime during the 19th century, it forms a mesa high in the clouds where its inhabitants became cowmatized, mutating into a race of cow people whose way of life is strikingly similar to the regular human cowboys that exist below. I worked in a bar when I got to New York. Keeping peace in this bovine territory are the COW Code of the West Boys, a group of lawmen led by Marshall Moo Montana that includes the Dakota Dude and the Colorado Kid. The COW Boys fight back against a series of villains, led by Mayor Oscar Bologna and Sheriff Terrible. For the most part, the COW Boys deal with pretty standard Wild West fare, cattle drives, oil strikes, and masked robberies. It's really autobiographical. Sadly for Perabo, outside of her 75-episode run on Covert Affairs, she is still best remembered for Coyote Ugly, despite having worked steadily in the years since. But going into its 2nd season, Wild West COW Boys of Moo Mesa toys with some really out there storylines, including one where the leader of a traveling circus hypnotizes the town's residents into handing over their money, and another where the COW Boys cross paths with a cattle-gargoyle hybrid called a cowgoyle. The 90s truly were a wonderful time to be alive, even if you were a cow. She's appeared in family fodder like 2003's Cheaper by the Dozen and its 2005 sequel, but she's also dabbled in thinking man's sci-fi like Christopher Nolan's The Prestige 2006 and Rian Johnson's neo-noir Mindbender Looper 2012. When Covert Affairs was canned in 2015, Perabo found a new home in indie films. She recently starred in gory horror Into the Grisly Maze and played alongside Antonio Banderas in Black Butterfly.